How much you charge for rent here?
We have F1 that comes up in October. We'll be charging around $2,500 per night for that.
$2,500 a night. What's an average night?
Average night on the weekends here is about $1,000 to $1,200, and then during the week we'll drop that to like $300 to $500 a night.
Do you think it's worth it?
Man, I think it's worth it.
Can we go check it out?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Okay, so what do we got here? A bunch of different album
Yeah,
covers?
welcome to the music gallery. So we got a bunch of albums that are super famous from all different genres, and that will bring you into your living room section here. Fireplace, setting the mood, and then I'll point you to this wall here, which is kind of the theme of the house. So you'll see that we have Wanderlust, which is the desire to travel. And so really the thinking here was, how can I bring what I love so much into one home or one theme?
Wow. Okay, and so how did you get this first property? Tell us a little bit about the acquisition process, that kind of thing.
So this is our first property. We put 5% down. Purchase price was $290,000.
Wow. How long ago was this?
This was 2018. Furnished the house with about $15,000. Went to Goodwill and Facebook Marketplace and really pieced it together. And that was actually the start of all of the investing, is buying this home. And instead of house hacking with having people live with me, I left on the weekends and I would rent it out then.
Where would you go on the weekends?
Girlfriend's house.
House hacking with your girl.
That's right.
Cool. So were you planning on it being an investment property when you started, or was it just like, I'm going to buy a house to live in? And then you're like, this Airbnb thing happened.
Yeah. So I had met someone at the time that was doing house hacking. So the goal was to have an investment property the entire time, but somewhere where I could live as well. And so really the two options with that was bunch of roommates, or the strategy that I picked, which was leave whenever there's big festivals during the weekends and rent it out then. And actually that ended up being more revenue than if I would have had full-time roommates at that time.
Oh, wow. In terms of the numbers behind that, like the money you were making on the weekends, did that cover your mortgage?
It did.
And you lived for free basically?
Yeah, so that first year we averaged $4,200 a month. And so sometimes I'd be staying there obviously longer, so I would just leave it open, and if I would get a 5-night booking, well, then I'd stay with my lovely girlfriend for 5 days.
It's a true test of your relationship.
100%, man. We averaged $4,200 a month. Mortgage was $1,750.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Wow. Let's go. What do we got going on here in the kitchen, Wanderlust style?
Yeah, so I mean, we put countertops and did some touches here, but you can see like we didn't do any massive renovations, right? We didn't switch all the cabinets or do anything with that. We just put some basic hardware on it. So from an ROI perspective with Airbnbs, we didn't feel like that was worth it.
How did you determine that updating the cabinets was not something you should do?
So I was managing other people's properties at the time, and so I was kind of able to see that. And then I also use, AirDNA to be able to run numbers to figure out what's working, what's not.
Today's video sponsor is AirDNA. They are the go-to tool when you're trying to buy an Airbnb. They have data on all the markets around the United States and international. They tell you how much properties will rent for, so this way you can find a great deal. Use the link in the description to sign up for a free trial, and thanks for supporting my page.
And from my personal opinion still, bathrooms, for instance, don't move the needle, right? To do a $30K reno on a bathroom. Same thing with some of those, cabinets and things like that. That's not going to change your impact as a guest at a house. But you add a hot tub, you add maybe a steam shower or something like that. That's an amenity. And so that could actually, add an impact. We had 1 year where we're kind of doing that, about a year and a half where we're doing that back and forth thing, where I'd go to my girlfriend's place, and then she ended up moving in. So then what we did, instead of doing that very often, since we didn't have another place to stay, is we only did that when we traveled. And then for big months, which was March and October, we would rent another place in Austin for about $3,000 for the month. And then we would pull in about $10K because we had put in the pool at that time. So now we're able to, make $20,000, $30,000 off this just from the time that we were traveling or outside of our house.
And that's more than your mortgage the entire year.
Correct.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, that's crazy.
Let's head to the money shot.
Damn, this looks nice.
Welcome to the backyard oasis in East Austin.
So this is why this rents for $2,500 a night.
This is why.
So you mentioned that you manage other properties, right? You have your own management company?
Yes, sir. 5-star vacation home rentals.
Okay. And did you start that before you had an Airbnb, or did you do that as you were like, whoa, this is a cool thing. I can manage other people's Airbnbs and leave my job?
Yeah, so I started with rental arbitrage, essentially renting a place, and whatever you make on Airbnb minus the rent, that's what you get to keep, right? So you don't own the property, you're renting it from someone else. But it was a cash flow play. I didn't have any money at the time to get started. So that was my initial thing to figure out how can I get an extra couple $1,000 a month in cash flow while I'm working full time.
Okay, so you did that before you bought this house.
Correct.
So you're doing that. You have 2 arbitrage properties, and you're doing this. At what point did you start the management company? Because you're like, screw it, I'm managing mine. I should manage others.
Yeah, I mean, that started just a little bit after buying this house. Really just started with like managing one friend's property and then looking for more arbitrage properties because that was going really well. So I had 4 arbitrage properties and then our own. So I had 5 properties. And my goal all along was to create an additional $4,000 in income a month. And I had reached that at that point. And then COVID happened. And then I lost 2 of the arbitrage units and decided to go all in on the Airbnb management side of things.
Tell us a little bit about this sign you got here. It's the first thing I noticed besides the pool in the backyard.
Yeah, for sure. So we work with a local artist. So we had like the travel wanderlust theme inside. We wanted to bring Austin into that a little bit. Kind of just looks like a skyline, but if you start looking closer, you know, microphone, guitar, bats coming off the South Congress Bridge. So it kind of incorporates, that's right, everything of Austin in this one cool mural. Nice bright colors. It says much love from Austin. So just spreading some love out to everyone traveling here. We really wanted this to be a statement house, right? And as we were kind of starting to make money, we just kept reinvesting that. And we had picked a theme and we really wanted to run with that to make this unique and special stay. That's one thing I've always said about Airbnb is if you're special and unique enough, even when everyone else is maybe struggling with saturation, you're still going to set yourself apart. So we got the in-ground 30-foot pool. We have the spa then that can be heated here. So that's all jetted. Day bed, sitting by, lounging. So we have the photos set up with, you know, some wine there and things like that. Outdoor TV, barbecue grill, big table for everyone to sit at out here. And again, a lot of this has just been little by little. We've just added things as cash flows come in.
I think that's an important thing for everyone watching is like, you don't have to have this as like your starting position. So don't let that discourage you as a reason to not get started. All right, I guess let's go upstairs.
Pop up.
So this house sleeps how many people? You said 10?
Yeah, so we keep this one a little lower. I think it's at 9 or 10 here. So up here, what we ended up doing is picking an international theme. So you're gonna be able to see that every room has a country by it. You see Mexico, Southeast Asia, Cuba. This one just got knocked down by a guest, but this is Greece, which you'll be able to tell by the wall of Santorini.
We'll go through Santorini first. What do we got?
So we got a full bed here. What I really like about this full bed is this trundle underneath. So we're able to pull that out if guests need it, and you can still use a really nice mattress on that. It's super comfortable for them. At the Santorini view, kind of did this table here for a picture of thinking of, you know, drinking coffee in the morning.
That's literally what I thought of. I did that.
Same blue tables. So that's what we got going on here. Updated full bath here. Then we'll come into Southeast Asia. This is one of my favorite rooms. So you can see this. I bought this one in Cambodia when I was down there. Bought that in Thailand, I believe. And so kind of structured this room around the Southeast Asia theme.
Because Airbnbs now is all about experiences, right?
That's right. So this is Mexico, one of my favorite countries for sure. Spent a lot of time down there.
Why did you choose to, instead of putting a queen or a full?
We actually had a queen here, but we just felt like we didn't have enough beds, especially a lot of guys groups. They don't want to share beds. A lot of it is just looking at analytics and seeing what groups are looking for and what they're booking. A lot of times bed count, the higher that is, the more bookings and higher rates that you're going to get. There's a guy in the neighborhood here. His houses are definitely not as nice as this, but he puts like 18 beds. And so he actually makes more money than me. Probably put a lot less money into it, but because he has 18 beds and he can sleep 22 people, he's pulling in more dough than us. Damn. So if you really want to do it, that's the way to do it. Again, just a lot more to deal with large groups coming in, things like that.
Okay, let's head into the next room.
So we're heading into Cuba. So got nice little floral theme. This doesn't stand out, or you wouldn't be able to tell it, but that's actually the Cuban flag.
Oh wow,
the
yeah, I've seen
of it
yeah.
all across the wall there. And then the last rehab we did on this house was again the bathrooms. So again, I feel like that's your lowest ROI. So we waited until we kind of compiled enough money from everything else we had done, and then we did the bathrooms.
What has been your biggest struggle with this property in general? Was tenants, getting on Airbnb, getting it listed high?
Yeah, I mean, I think just keeping up with maintenance and Airbnbs is the hardest thing, period. Overall for Airbnbs, we now have 42 in our portfolio.
42 that you own?
42 that we manage.
Wow.
Yeah, and mostly luxury. So those are average averaging about 10,000 a month a piece. And so we'll do about 6 million this year in our portfolio. We have a 20% management fee, and we have to keep it that high because what we do is we actually hire local managers in our company. So I have 2 full-time people for Austin. Their whole job is to come into this property and walk it after cleaners are here, manage maintenance. My local manager will be here later today. She'll be checking on the property, going through a checklist. And the only reason we have that is to keep our quality control really high. We're now the highest rated property management company in Central Texas, which is awesome.
Wow.
4.93 overall on Airbnb. So in ChatGPT, it'll come up. It's not a lie.
Is there one piece of advice you would give to someone who's looking to start out real estate investing?
Yeah, man. So it's just get started. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously do your homework, figure out what you want to invest in, think about how you want to structure your life. That's one big thing I haven't mentioned is the thing that attracted me about real estate, which is the freedom that comes with it. Okay. Well, then I got into arbitrage and things like that. And I realized, damn, I don't have any freedom. Right. So, but now it's been thinking about how do I want to structure my company, and I'm buying short-term rentals, and then I can just plop them into my own management company that I'll be stepping out of hopefully in a couple of years as I bring in a CFO. So that's one thing I would really have people think about is what do you want your life to look like? And start from there. And then you'll figure out what kind of real estate you want. Once you figure that out, then do all the research and then finally get started. The last thing I'll say is one of the biggest impacts of my life has been mastermind groups. I volunteered for a mastermind group, a high level entrepreneur group called GoBundance for about 7 years. I would show up for these events. I would serve drinks. I would just be in the room. I'd do whatever I needed to be.
This is before you invested.
I was just getting started, right?
Okay.
It was $1 million net worth at the time. Now it's $2 million to join. So I didn't have the net worth to be able to join. So I literally would just volunteer to be in that room. And over time, being in that room, a lot of these clients that I have, a lot of investors have come from there. But more than that, a lot of the expertise and knowledge has come from that.
And your goals with starting out originally were for freedom, you said, right?
Yeah.
But do you have like a number of units that you want to get your management company to, or that you guys want to have in your portfolio where you're like, I'm good, I hit my goal?
Yeah, so that line has kind of moved a couple of times now as I've gotten a little bit more successful. And so that's interesting to watch and figure out. But I did have an $18,000 financial freedom goal from my own properties. And so as soon as we move out of our next house, then we'll be at that 18K marker.
Good stuff, bro.
Thanks, brother. So that'll be financial freedom for me.
For you and 2 kids.
And
your
our
wife.
kids
Yeah.
and our wife. And my wife, not our wife. Still, hey, brother.
This is Austin. But knowing what you know now, would you do this all over again?
Yeah. Knowing what I know right now, I would do it all over again for sure. I will say this. The way that I did this back then probably wouldn't work right now. So I have to be really honest about that.
So what would you do differently then? And what do you mean by that? Because I think that's
so
important to explain.
like the market's just way more saturated. One of the things you're talking about is like location. It doesn't have to be the perfect one. It doesn't, but it needs to have something special about it now to make it work. Mm-hmm. So like this house without a pool with shitty Goodwill furniture, you're not going to get a tenant. And so you do have to be much more high quality on Airbnb if you're going to get in the game.
Thanks, bro.
Appreciate you, brother.
Where can people find you?
Instagram is 5star VHR or www.5starvhr.com.